Hello, I'm Andrew Suskind, and I'm a psychotherapist and author based in West Los Angeles since 1992, specializing in trauma and addictions. Welcome to our podcast, which I call It's Not About the Sex, also the title of my recent book. Here we focus on all topics related to compulsive sexual behavior, often referred to as sex addiction. In particular, we explore ways to build long-term, sustainable recovery while establishing more meaningful connection and greater intimacy. Our intention is to offer fresh viewpoints, brand new perspectives, and practical user-friendly tools toward living a more deeply connected life. Let's get started.
Dr. Carol Clark is a sex therapist, addictions professional, and author who conceptualizes our stimulating lifestyles as a perpetually addictive state that disconnects us from each other and the universal life force. Her books, Addict, America, The Lost Connection, and My Pocket Therapist, are guides written for everyone. I'm so pleased to have you with us today, Carol, and please introduce yourself briefly in terms of anything that I may have missed in the bio.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Andrew. I've been a therapist for 30 years, and
Wow.
over those years, I've just conceptualized different ways of looking at people's problems, and in the context of sex therapy, and then addictions therapy, and then sex addiction therapy. I just realized that, we're all dealing with the same thing, and that's this loss of connection and lack of intimacy. And it really boils down to an addiction framework that makes it easy to understand for everybody.
Beautiful. So the loss of connection and the lack of intimacy are really the lens that you use when you're talking about addiction.
Yes, addiction is a barrier to intimacy. So people who are engaged in addictive lifestyles in just reaching for more and more and more, needing more and more and more. It's all about stimulation. It doesn't matter the drug of choice. It's about stimulation, not being present, being constantly seeking escape from pain and for that next thing. And that keeps us disconnected from the here and now, from the people we're with, from ourselves, and from the universe.
So one thing that caught my attention in preparation for today's conversation is that I heard that you believe that we're actually all addicts of different kinds. and I was curious not only what that means to you, but if you could illustrate that for us.
So we're all addicts. We all can be in an addictive state. I like to say it that way. So certainly there's a lot of people who can specifically identify as, I'm a drug addict, I'm a internet addict, I'm a porn addict, I'm a shopping addict. But there's an addictive lifestyle that we all slip in and out of in today's world. And I think everybody out there listening to this can connect with that idea of not being able to shut things off, like shut off their phones, stop checking their emails, their Facebook, their Instagram, stop looking at the news. We're in a 24-hour news cycle where it's breaking news every second. And even people that really try not to still find themselves getting sucked into that stimulation. And the addictive process means that we're changing our brains to how much stimulation we actually need. So just when we hear about someone who starts out drinking and then they develop tolerance, so they need more and more alcohol to get the same effect. Well, it's that way with anything. We need more and more stimulation to get the same effect, just to feel normal, let alone excited or stimulated or feel pleasure. So we're all in this state of simmering. We're all this simmering because we've raised the baseline of how much stimulation we need just to feel normal. And then we have to reach for more and more and more to feel a sense of excitement and pleasure.
Sure. And I love the title of your book, Addict America. And I was wondering is this specific to America, or is this beyond our culture as well?
Well, I certainly think it's gone beyond our culture, but it really starts with America. America exemplifies it because Americans pride themselves on that, needing more and more and more. Just, today I was having lunch and talking about the amount of food on my plate in the restaurant, which is just so ridiculous because nobody can eat that much food. And when you travel to other countries, they laugh at us because they say, how can you have so much food on your plate? They have small quantities and that's fine. So America has this more and more stimulating from every direction. So American lifestyles personify that. And in fact, we glory in it. We wear it like a badge of honor. And we haven't realized just how out of control our lives have gotten. But since we kind of export a lot of our culture around the world, other countries, I think, have probably adapted and adopted a lot of that way of looking at things, that mindset, that addictive lifestyle state of being.
Right. And one thing that I heard you say is that sometimes it's so automatic that at restaurants, for example, we're just given way too much than is good for us. But somehow there's this idea of more is better. And we know differently. I mean, research and science and other cultures who are healthier don't do that. So it doesn't matter whether we're talking about food or sex or money or any kind of addictive substance. It's interesting what you're saying. More is really the mantra here.
Yeah. It's just become a way of life for us.
Sure.
And, so that's why it's Addict America.
Yeah, exactly. So if someone is in recovery from whatever addiction, sometimes there's this idea or this myth that everything else will simply fall into place as a result of giving up those behaviors. Yet, when we're talking about relationships, they can be very challenging, very complex. So why are relationships in recovery so difficult?
Well, so let's differentiate between abstinence and recovery. This is why I like to talk about addiction as an overall way of being. It's not about any particular drug or behavior of choice. We learn that, if I do this, my brain is going to get its fix. But really what's happening is if I stop doing this, I'm going to find that to do. I'll find something else.
Right.
So it's not about what you're addicted to. It's not about cross addictions or multiple addictions. It's about being an addict versus being in recovery. And being in recovery is about being present, mindful, able to connect, able to be truly intimate with another person. And this is really difficult because the whole reason people become addicts to begin with are because of disruptions in connections in childhood. So children start out life being the center of the universe. And they take everything as, I'm the center of the universe. It's all about me. And I'm also to blame. I'm to blame for everything. So parents get a divorce. Oh, it's my fault. So kids internalize these negative messages about themselves. I'm not good enough. I'm a bad person. I'm worthless. I'm unlovable. They internalize these in childhood from, whether it's severe abuse or simply a parent thinking they're being motivational. And instead they're not.
Right.
So as we grow, we start seeing all life events get filtered through that lens of I'm not good enough, I'm worthless, I'm not lovable.
Right. Shame messages.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. And so then what happens is we discover that, when I do this, when I take this drug, or when I look at porn, or when I get online, it gives me this high that not only is a high, but it's also a relief of pain.
Sure.
And so then when I sober up or stop doing it, then it's not just I can continue my life, but then I experience that pain rushing in, and I need to go back and do whatever the drug is to get that relief of pain again. And then I need more and more and more because my brain is going to adapt. So what we have is addicts go into recovery. They need to recover from that early childhood pain, whatever the trauma was, whether it's, big T traumas or little T traumas, as we call them. We need to turn that negative cognition, that negative belief about self around so that when someone stops getting high from anything, they're not flooded with that pain. And then they can feel good about themselves and engage in a truly intimate relationship. So there's a lot of pieces to recovery.
Right. So that's really important for our listeners to hear, because it's a much more holistic kind of view rather than just talking about behaviors or giving up behaviors.
Exactly.
Yeah. So why don't we shift to sex and intimacy? And for instance, if a partner doesn't get turned on by his or her partner, even though they love one another, what can they do about that?
So that can come from a couple of different places. One place, it can come from addiction. Okay. The idea of controlling intimacy. And for someone who's been living an addictive lifestyle in a state of addiction, escape from pain, a fear of being rejected, and trying to control intimacy, because we all have an innate desire to be connected. That's born in us. We are social creatures. We are all connected.
Biologically wired.
We're wired for connection.
That's right.
Look at it from quantum physics with the Higgs field, or you want to look at it religious or spiritually.
Sure.
We're all connected.
Yeah.
And so we have that part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, the enlightened brain, I call it, wants to be connected. The limbic system, the primitive caveman brain, excuse the gender part of that, that primitive part of the brain where the limbic system, where survival is fearful of connection.
Sure.
So we have those warring parts. So what people often do is they engage in pseudo intimate relationships. They if they're in love with a partner, then that's too out of control. It's too close. It's too intimate. So they have to control it by pushing away sexually. And then they can engage in pornography or multiple affair partners or that kind of thing with people that there's, again, a built-in reason not to be completely intimate. So it's pseudo intimacy. It's controlled. So when you have two people where I'm picking up on any kind of addictive energy, we'll talk about that. That, you may be trying to control how close you get to your partner, and you're doing it with sex, because to be fully intimate, you have to give up that fear and heal all those childhood messages.
Sure.
So for a couple that I'm working with that, I'll do trauma work. I personally use EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. But there's a lot of other therapies that are non-talk. See, we want to be working with the limbic system, not talking with the prefrontal cortex. Does that make sense? So when we do the EMDR therapy or another kind of therapy to turn around those I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable messages, so that I am lovable, I can truly believe I'm lovable. Now I'm fully capable of intimacy with another person. And then my therapy with them becomes just breaking through bad habits and helping them to connect and helping them to be sexual as an expression of intimacy, not sex being intimate. Like, okay, we're intimate because we're having sex. No, we feel intimate. And so sex is one way of expressing that. So that's one that's one answer to your question. But another answer would simply be completely different. People have expectations about sex and their partners, and They have these expectations based on their families, their friends, the media, their culture, all the shoulds.
Right.
And in my book, My Pocket Therapist, I talk about why should is a bad word. It's the worst word in the human language.
Yes.
And because should is this, how things should be. Well, who says? So when we shift it to want or would like, well, this is how I would like it to be, and let go all those expectations, and also, and those expectations for people who are partnered for a long period of time, and somebody says, oh, I'm no longer attracted to my partner. Well, what does that really mean? It usually means that, my partner, I don't look at my partner and instantly get turned on the way I did when we first met. Well, that's not a realistic expectation. Okay.
Sure.
So, more realistic is that, what do we want from each other? How are we expressing intimacy? What is the meaning of sex in our relationship? How can we be sexual in ways that are different from, what we did 10 years ago or 20 years ago when we were, young and flexible. You could just look at each other and get turned on. So sex needs to change. So a lot of what the therapy I do there is about just looking at what are your expectations and how can we really increase the intimacy and be intimate in other ways, not just sexually, so that then when people are sexual, they can just enjoy each other in a variety of ways.
That's very thorough, and I love the part, Carol, about wanting to get rid of the word should. And you may have heard this before, but I don't want my clients shoulding all over themselves.
Yeah.
Because it becomes such a oftentimes a self-loathing, shameful kind of cycle. And what I'm hearing you say is, how do you sort things out in such a way that you can really put language and ways of accessing what really is pleasurable ultimately, whether that be a single person or a partnered person for that matter.
Yeah, words are very powerful. Words are incredibly powerful. And there's a lot of words that we use automatically without really considering it. And so a lot of what I do is help bring people's attention to that and how we use words and the words we use. For instance, when it comes to sex, the word performance. People talk about sexual performance. Well, intimate sex is not a performance. Right.
You're not going to get a report card at the end of the act.
Right. Nobody's applauding you or putting money in your G-string,
Exactly.
So unless that's what you're doing with your partner. No, we want, so just the word performance. When you think about, if I'm performing, I'm not performing up to whatever, well, that means that my partner is judging me. It means, or I'm fearful of my partner's judgment. It means that then that we're not equals. Now, if we're not equals, that means we're not connecting. If you picture, usually if we weren't on the phone right now, I'd be holding one hand over the other and kind of moving them towards each other, but they'd not be connecting because one is higher than the other and it's not connecting. So we have to be equal. So if I move my hands to where their fingertips are on a level, we're equal. And then we can interlock, we can be connected. So we want to look at that language that puts that inequality in the relationship there, because we can never be connected if we're unequal.
Right. So there's a term that you use that goes like this: intimacy by the numbers. Can you help me understand what that is? That's so interesting.
Yes, that was a little article I wrote. And if you go to addictamerica.net, that Intimacy by the Numbers handout is on there, and everyone can access it for free and pass it around, share it. So Intimacy by the Numbers goes to this idea that we all have this fear of intimacy because, going back to childhood, we've incorporated this belief that we're not lovable, worthless, we're not important, not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So this means that we're not fully capable of complete intimacy and connection.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we give a number to ourselves that denotes how much intimacy we're capable of, then what happens is we're putting out an energy, a vibration into the universe that's going to attract someone that has the same number. Because if we're attracting someone that is more capable of intimacy than we are, then that person's going to be trying to get closer to us, and we're going to be pulling away. So we're just not going to get into a relationship, and vice versa. Okay. So we attract someone that has that same vibrational number. And now we're on this parallel track. We're both comfortable. Our limbic systems are comfortable together. It's like, I'm here, you're there. Okay, this is comfortable. This is where I like to be. The thing is, our prefrontal cortex, our enlightened brain, is saying, no, I want to be more connected. I want to really feel as close to you as I possibly can. And so now we're back to that argument. So the two parts of our brains pushing and pulling against each other. But when people say, well, I can't ever find a partner, I find people who are not available, they're married, they live across the country, there's for some reason they're not available. It's because you have the same number, because you're not able to be fully connected. And here's something fun. I used to notice, and I did this as a therapist before I figured it out. Somebody would come to me and say, oh, I'm trying to find somebody. I want to be able to date and just find somebody and settle down. And I'd buy into that. Like, okay, well, let's look at how you can do that. Where can you meet people, and how can this happen? And what do you, goodness gracious. We're trying to solve a problem. And then I came to realize, no, the problem is you have this number, you're a 5. And until you heal and become able to be completely, have no barriers, so you become a 0 or a 10, whichever way you want to go with the number, but you become capable of complete intimacy.
Okay.
You're not going to find anybody.
Yeah.
But when you do your own work, when you really heal, when you just approach life from this completely open, able to connect place, that's who you're going to attract. You don't have to do any work. It's beautiful. You don't have to do anything. It's going to be right there. It's going to come to you.
Like your magnet has gotten stronger.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Beautiful. Yes. Oh, I love that. I'll have to check out the article. So I want to switch gears again, because, as a sex therapist, oftentimes, who happens to understand addiction so thoroughly, you run into situations that are a little different from the average client who walks in. So one example, and I've run into this many times, especially with folks who are compulsively using porn, where they have no problem getting an erection. I'm talking about men, obviously. No problem getting an erection when they're active in their addictive compulsive cycle. But why would they have difficulties now that they're no longer active in that addictive compulsive cycle?
So when they are in that addictive compulsive cycle, they are practicing that disconnecting, from the partner. So they're controlling the intimacy. They can be fully open and connected, within those restrictions of being with porn, because that's not, those aren't real people. But then with an intimate partner, with an emotionally connected partner, they have to control that connection, that intimacy, and do so then with sex. So when they go into recovery now, it's very scary. They've got bad habits to break. So really, I think it comes down to that. They have to break their bad habits. That they're accustomed to getting too close to someone, and we just need to push through that discomfort. So once we've healed everything in the limbic system, Then it's just bringing our enlightened brain to the forefront, making decisions and recognizing that the brain, the limbic system doesn't like change. It's been chugging along for 5 million years. Okay. It doesn't like to change. So whatever it's been doing, change is going to feel uncomfortable, like any bad habit. If you're used to sleeping on your side and your doctor says you got to start sleeping on your back, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Sure.
And then you say, well, but I understand why I'm doing this, and so I'm going to do it. And then after a week or two, it's comfortable. Right? So it's like anything else. So that's what we have to do. So we make the decision. This is what I want. This is where I want to be with my partner. And then the partner needs to be on board too, because remember, the partner, that there's that equal fear of intimacy. So the partner has their own, whatever their fear of intimacy is, they're going to have to push through that as well. So then both people can connect in a way it's very different, and it's been uncomfortable, but they're going to push through and do it until they get comfortable with it, because they're making a conscious decision that this is what we want.
Yeah. So a follow-up question. I've been coming into contact with clients, mostly older teenagers and young adults, who talk about, and this is really what they feel, that their brain has been hijacked by the porn, that they've been using it for 5-10 years, and those have been the images that have been part of their brain circuitry for all that time. So to shift from those images to real life sex is oftentimes feels bland or scary or foreign to their bodies and to what they're really wanting to achieve, which is to feel closer to their partner. So I'm wondering if you could say just a little bit about that piece in terms of making that shift from the porn images to real life sex.
Sure. There's the habitual part. This is what you've conditioned yourself to. So, and we all, have some images or fantasies or whatever in our heads that help us, if you're chugging along having intercourse and it's like, okay, you want to have an orgasm, and then you just go to your go-to and boom, it can happen. So we have that kind of conditioning in our brains. But then we have the expectations. So it gets back to what expectations are realistic. And porn is not realistic. It's, it's all fake, airbrushed, manufactured.
Right.
And so you've conditioned yourself to that. You have this expectation that, real people are going to be like that. No, you got to lose that expectation. It's not real. So you got to get rid of that. Then you have the, just getting high part of it. There is a trade-off. Look, you can be with, when you first meet somebody, you get all those feel-good drugs going on in your brain, endorphins and adrenaline and enkephalins and, norepinephrine. I mean, the brain is packed full of these chemicals that go wild to make us feel good. They get us high when we first are attracted to somebody, and it doesn't sustain. But there's a trade-off, because we get emotional fulfillment, we get love, we get commitment, we have someone, a partner to share our lives with, and that's the trade-off. And so a lot of people, they have this idea that they need to keep getting that high, and it's just usually not realistic. So we can try different things to keep the excitement alive, and that works to a point, but it's never going to be like it was in the beginning. And so it's a lot of it's just accepting, that as we grow older, as we mature, there's certain trade-offs in life.
Right.
And and some people who become sex addicts, who keep going after new partners, or love addicts, is another chasing relationships, because they're chasing that first high, but they're missing out on that long-term fulfillment.
Which really reminds me that almost everything we're talking about today has to do with the fantasy versus the reality, and addiction is, in general, is about fantasy. It's about getting out of reality. And really what I hear you focusing on and really lasering for us today is this idea of how do we move from lack of intimacy to intimacy? How do we move from lack of connection to connection? And how recovery is really in a sense, it's a lifestyle shift away from checking out and toward checking in. Does that sound accurate, or would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so addiction is a turning inwards. It's about reaching for something external to fix something internal. So it's never going to be enough. You're always going to keep reaching, grabbing, and all your energy is turned inwards. Recovery is about feeling good enough. I'm enough for me. I'm complete within myself. And now I can turn my energy outwards. And being with another person is enhancing my life, not filling a need.
Yes.
And anything that I do, whether it's eating or, any pleasurable activities in my work, are all about paying it forward, giving, putting my energy out into the world to make it a better place. I don't need to suck up energy because I'm enough. So that's what recovery is, being present. I can be here talking with you, and all my attention is on you. And thinking about the audience. I'm not distracted thinking about what I'm going to do 10 minutes from now, or I can't wait till I can, it's, so there is that, yes, a lifestyle shift. It's a shift of energy to be in the present and grounded and turning our energy outwards. And that's what recovery is. And that's how we can connect with another person, is by truly being aware of the other person as another person. Right.
So our time has gone so quickly today, but I want to ask you a little wrap-up question, Carol. So if there was one or two bullet points that you would really like our audience to take with them from today's discussion, what would you like that to be?
So I would like people to be aware of when they are in an addictive state and when they're in a recovering state. So that then they can choose, they can recognize the difference, and then they can choose to be in a recovering state and then do more of that. So that means, when you're, sitting in traffic and getting really angry and you're really frustrated about all the things you can't control, and to move to, what, I'm here, I can control myself, I can just be here and choose how I want to be in this moment. And that's recovery. And it's basically summed up best in the Serenity Prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, which is pretty much everything around me.
Yes.
The courage to change the things I can, and that's me. And the wisdom know the difference. And that's really the takeaway is, that's so beautiful. It sums it up. To just be aware of, we can all be in recovery. We can all choose to be in recovery, and it's a great place to be.
And with that note, what I wanted to share once again with our audience is that Dr. Carol Clark has written two books. One is called Addict America, The Lost Connection, and the other is called My Pocket Therapist. And we will have those listed on the website, or on the podcast site, I should say. And I just so appreciate you joining us today, Carol. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. I'm so pleased that you asked me to participate. And I love talking about this stuff, because anything I can do to pay it forward, put energy out there, that's what I love to do.
And you've done it. I really, really appreciate it. All right, Carol, take good care, and look forward to crossing paths one way or the other.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening today. It was so terrific sharing this time with my colleague, Dr. Carol Clark, and discussing this really vital topic that affects those affected by compulsive sexual behavior. She can be reached through her website at www.drcarolclark.com, and I'll spell that out, drcarolclark.com. And be sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, or please share our podcast on Spotify. And if there are any topics you would like us to discuss in the future, just let us know. And I look forward to you joining us on future podcasts, and thanks again for being with us today.